Okay. So we have evidence. We have evidence that man is a social being from our speech. Okay, that's evidence because animals don't have speech. Animals make sounds because their sounds only are concerned with eating and maybe pain or maybe joy or something. They experience a little bit sad. They have passions, but not in the sense that we have. They're non-rational. Okay? They can't communicate to each other in a rational way. Only we can do that. I had my dog Max for 12 years. I used to talk to Max, but Max didn't talk to me because he couldn't. He didn't communicate in a human way. Okay? Now, we see the need for communication in speech with the story of Adam and Eve. Because God, after he created all the animals, he brought them before Adam. Adam named the animals, but as the second chapter of Genesis says, none of the animals proved a suitable partner for the man. And why did none of the animals prove a suitable partner for the man, Andrew, and why? Because they couldn't communicate with him in a human way, no. So, what did God do? He cast a sleep on Adam, and the Bible says from a rib, which is kind of metaphorical language, meaning she's the same nature as him, he raises up Eve. And it's love at first sight. This is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He can communicate with it. Okay? That's what he does. So, we see the need for sociality in the very creation story. The first few chapters of Genesis that deal with the creation and the fall are what we call Christian anthropology. Okay? Anthropos means man, anthropology, the study of man. It reveals to us who man is from a Christian standpoint. So, speech is an evidence that we are social by nature. And we also need sociality to be social for a couple of other reasons. Okay? One is, to provide what? Basic needs for ourselves. And what are the basic needs for ourselves? Mitch, what are those basic needs? One of them is what? Okay. Something you probably did before you came here, this class, food, sustenance, okay? We have to cooperate. Okay? You can't be growing all your own food all the time. You have to have other people doing things and you cooperate, okay? Some grow food, some make different things. You exchange goods, okay? We're not islands. We can't live like this. Okay? So besides sustenance, okay, food, clothing, housing, we are social beings for another reason, and this has to do with our rational nature. What is that? What's the other reason besides
education?
Education. Okay, you have to form and educate the little ones, okay, children. Okay, intellectually, okay, and the most important thing is morally. You give people moral education because we're moral beings. What does it mean to be good, right and wrong? We have to teach them. Okay? So. It's unnatural for us to exist apart from people, and even if we do activities by ourselves, we're still reliant on others, as I said. When you play a video game by yourself, well, someone had to make the internet, someone had to make that game. This is a cooperative effort. Okay? So we don't live alone, we're not isolated, and when people are isolated, they suffer pain and heartache and depression, things like this. That's why a punishment in prison is solitary confinement. You're not going to be able to socialize with other people. We're going to put you in a cell and leave you there alone. And actually, this is probably one of the greatest pains of hell, because hell is total isolation. There's no sociality in hell. Nothing. You're there alone. And there's no joy. Because you know you've lost God for eternity through your own actions. Yesterday's gospel talked about hell, if you remember. I'm just wondering what you're liking here. You just switch on something. Okay, close that up. Okay. This isn't a time to be working on different things, okay? In fact, you're able to write, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Slowly.
Yeah, so why don't you take a notebook instead of a computer, okay? Because I want your attention here. Well, you weren't. You were looking at something else and you clicked out of it as soon as I got to you. Okay? Pardon me? Yeah, but this is a class where you do other reading, okay? Got it? Yesterday's parable in the gospel was the rich man and Lazarus. And the rich man dined sumptuously. Lazarus sat outside his door. He was starving. He wished he could eat the scraps of the food that fell from the rich man's table, but the rich man wouldn't give him any. So the rich man, well, Lazarus dies. He goes to Abraham's bosom. Jesus hadn't died on the cross yet. This is where the holy souls went before they could get to heaven. We call it Abraham's bosom. They went with Abraham and Moses and the other holy men and women who died before Christ. Where does the rich man go? He goes, where, Bridget? He goes to hell. And what does the rich man say to Lazarus when he sees him off in the distance in Abraham's bosom? He asks him to do something. What does he ask him to do?
I think it was like dip his finger on his tongue with water.
Just one drop of water, okay? I'm parched with these flames, okay? The flames of hell. Hell is burning, okay? And Abraham responds saying, can't do this. There's a chasm between us and you. Okay? We can't cross it. Okay? This is revealing a truth that once someone's in hell, they're there for eternity. We can't help them. They can't help themselves. Okay? They're separated from God for eternity. So then the rich man makes a request. And he asks Abraham if he could send Lazarus to his 5 brothers so they won't end up where he is. And that seems like a kind request, doesn't it? Okay? The rich man's suffering. He doesn't want his brothers to end up where he is. And Abraham says, no. They have Moses and the prophets. And the rich man says, well, but if someone would come to them from the dead, then they would believe. And Abraham says, no, they won't believe even if someone should rise from the dead. And that's a reference to Christ himself, because he rose from the dead and people still didn't believe. They did. Well, St. Teresa of Avila, a doctor of the church, whose feast is coming up later in a couple of weeks in October, mid-October, okay, she gave an interesting insight on the rich man's request. She said the rich man did not ask that Lazarus be sent to his brothers because he cared about his brothers, that they may end up in hell, that he wanted to prevent them from being harmed in this way. Okay? His interest was totally selfish, because he knew that if his brothers continued on their bad course, that his brothers would end up in hell and he would be punished more. See, in hell there are degrees of punishment, just as in heaven there are degrees of happiness. The more holy you are, the greater happiness you will have forever in heaven. The more evil you are, the more suffering you will have in hell. So your actions can lead others to hell. The rich man knew that his bad actions were probably leading his brothers to hell. So it was out of totally selfish reasons that he asked that Lazarus be sent to his brothers to warn them. Not that he had any concern about them, because in hell you can't have concern about anyone. You hate everyone. You hate God. Because you're in a total isolated state. And besides the pain of sense, which is the flames, the greater pain is the pain of loss. You've lost salvation. You've lost heaven. And you know it. So, Heaven is the greatest social state that there is. We're looking to being in this heavenly society with God. With the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit primarily, and then additionally, you say it's an accidental joy, okay? A side joy to seeing God, okay? Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We're going to be with the billions of angels and the saints, hopefully our friends and relatives in heaven. That's the society we're looking for right now. We're working toward, okay? But here on earth, okay, we are social beings, and the fundamental cell of our sociality, it begins somewhere. Where is the root, the basis, the most fundamental social unit? What do you think that is? I'm asking you to use your reason here, because the ancient philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, they figured this out, and I think you can if you just put your mind to it. Okay? What is the fundamental social unit that exists, that has always existed from the beginning of the human race, and it exists today? What is that unit? Can someone tell me? Take a guess. Can you? Well, take a guess. What do you think it is?
I don't remember.
Well, I'm not asking you to remember. I'm just saying.
Well, you said I can't say I don't know, so I was trying to find it.
Okay. Good. That's good. Okay. I'll give you a hint. It started with Adam and Eve. When God made Adam and Eve, okay, they were living together as a what? As a family. The family is the fundamental social unit. Okay? That's it. It's the root of all sociality. It begins right there. Okay? So we're going to have to study the family in order to study man as a social being. Okay? So family, the fundamental social unit. Why don't you just? I don't want to have to turn this off because I'm going to use this in a minute. So just write in your notebooks. Okay. Save me from writing it on board. Okay. The family is the fundamental cell. Okay. Family is the fundamental cell or building block of society. Okay? So, family is the fundamental cell or building block of, say, human society. Okay? Because animals don't really have families. They band together in clans. Okay? And here's another thing to write. Okay, both Plato and Aristotle, the ancient philosophers, okay, they realized this. Okay? They taught this. Okay? That the family is the origin of human society. And now, I'm going to put up something on a, whoops, look at that. That's it. Okay. Very good. I must have lost it. Okay, the bishops of Wisconsin just put together a document on marriage. Okay? defining marriage. And this is it. I'm going to shut off a little light here. Just going to read through this. Is marriage a social arrangement that humans invented? Okay. Is it merely a legal concept or only a religious tradition? How far back in history does marriage go? Well, number one, the origin of marriage is found in the beginning of humanity, Adam and Eve, okay, arising from our divinely created biological nature as men and women, and out of our desire to enter into a deep, exclusive relationship with another person. The creation accounts in the book of Genesis, centering on the story of Adam and Eve, offer crucial insights into the beginnings of marriage and into its essential and unchangeable characteristics. Those last words there are very important. Unchangeable characteristics. Now, why do you think the bishops, when they were describing their opening paragraph in marriage, and this is being used actually, if you get married someday, okay, the priest is going to give you this document and go through it with you, because this is intended for couples getting married. So why would the bishop stress it's, goes back to the beginning, it arises out of divinely created biological nature, okay, men and women, okay, its unchangeable characteristics. That language is important. Okay. Right in the opening paragraph, they're telling couples who are getting married this truth. Okay. Why do you think those words, biological nature as men and women, unchangeable characteristics, are used in the opening paragraph? Dina, any ideas? Pardon me? Why did the bishop say this? That marriage is based upon our biological nature as men and women, and it's unchangeable. Okay? Why do you think the bishops would say this in an opening paragraph of a document on marriage, brand new, this is hot off the press, about 2 weeks ago? Why do you think they would say that? Okay? Think of culturally what's happening now, okay, in our culture, okay, where they would need to say that marriage is based upon the biological nature of men and women and its unchangeable characteristics. Marriage can't be changed. Why, do you think? Well,
Is it like having like sex before?
not sex before marriage. No, that's not it. There's another reason why the bishops have said this, okay? You see, Kara, how about you? Can you tell us? So what? Yes?
Because people want to get married.
Okay. This is the reason, because there's a push now for what is called same-sex marriage. Okay. So, well, marriage, the bishops are saying, is it's instituted by God at the beginning of the human race between Adam and Eve. Okay. We read about it in the Genesis story. It's based upon, it's divinely created, okay? Where did marriage come from? From God, okay? God created marriage. God instituted marriage, okay? So, okay? And it's based upon the biological nature of men and women, okay? Male and female. And because God created it, He instituted it the way it is, okay, from the beginning of the human race, it is unchangeable. Meaning, there are attempts today to redefine marriage into something else. Same-sex marriage, but not only that, okay, polygamous marriages, where someone would have, the Mormons, for example, Joseph Smith, the Muslims, for example, the Quran, Muhammad recommended only 6 wives if you were poor. Okay? The sheiks, the wealthy can have hundreds, and that's the problem actually with Osama bin Laden. He was one of 85 children. His father fathered with many different women. Because his father was wealthy. This is allowable. So, yes, Chris.
Well, wasn't it allowed back then,
Wasn't it allowed when?
though? Back then? Like,
Back-
Abraham and all that?
Oh, the time of Abraham, okay. Actually, the scribes and the Pharisees asked Jesus about, for example, marriage and divorce. Okay? And Jesus says, well, you know, it wasn't this way in the beginning. Okay? God permitted, for example, the kings of Israel to have many wives because this was done because of their fallen state. What Jesus was saying, Jesus' clear teaching is that marriage is between one man and one woman. This is the way it was in the beginning. I'm restoring it to its original dignity. Okay? So, it's unchangeable characteristics. We can't change marriage. We can't redefine marriage to allow people of the same sex or one person to marry many other people. No, marriage is instituted by God. The state has no power to change it. We don't have the power to change it. Okay? So, that's the first paragraph. And the second, I'll just raise this up a little bit here. Okay? So, marriage between a man and a woman is a legal concept. Okay? It's one of the building blocks of civilization. It's the primary means for forming new members of society. That means children. Marriage is intended by God as the means by which children are to be conceived and born into this world. That's important too if you look at the social context. Right now, illegitimacy is a huge problem in our nation. Depending upon the race of people, okay, in the black community, there is probably about 80% are born out of wedlock. Hispanics, about 50. Caucasians, about 40. Okay, this is not good for society. Okay, you have children growing up without a stable environment. Okay, and as a result, we have problems. There are great social problems as a result of this. I'll cite you one example. Okay. This goes back a few years when the illegitimacy rate amongst blacks was about 66%, about 2/3. Okay? There was a corollary to that. 2/3 of all black males, young black males between 15 and 35, were either imprisoned on probation or parole. Because if you don't have a father to guide you, there are problems. You get into problems socially. Okay? I see this in the neighborhood I'm at, in Mount Carmel. Okay? With guys walking down the street with their pants down, and it's sad because they don't have any good direction, any good family background. Okay? We have many. Okay? So, marriage between a man and a woman is a legal concept because it is one of the building blocks of civilization, the primary means for forming members of a new society. We want children to be brought into the world in a stable environment with a mother and a father. So, the concept of marriage is at the core of several religions in the world. It's especially important in Christianity. It is true to say that marriage is a biological or natural, social, legal, and religious reality all at the same time. So, how is the marriage of one man and one woman a reflection of God's own nature? Okay? Well, marriage reflects God's own nature in certain ways. The physical complementarity of men and women is a reflection of their emotional complementarity and their deep capacity to give and receive love. Complementarity meaning physically they're complementary. Okay, the sexual organs of the male and female are made to produce life. Okay? That's their primary end. And there's an emotional complementarity too, because men and women aren't the same. We're different emotionally, psychologically. There are books on this. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Okay? A number of books. This just, it's a reflection or a statement of what should be commonly understood, that men and women are not the same. We react differently to things. We approach things differently. Okay? And that complementarity is a good thing when we're talking about marriage and mother and father, okay, raising children. Okay? That complementarity of their not only physical nature but their emotional makeup as well. Okay? To give and receive love. Okay? Marriage is not a mere biological instinct. It requires an act of the will, a choice to live in a manner that always seeks the well-being of someone else. Okay? So that's what really marriage is based upon, self-giving love. I'm going to give myself to you totally. You're going to give yourself totally to me. It's selfless love. It's called Christian charity. That's the foundation of real marriage. Emotional love is a good thing. That's what draws people together. I love you. I feel this great feeling toward you. Okay? That's good and beautiful, but that's not what keeps a marriage together. It's Christian charity, where you're going to be willing to sacrifice your own self for the good of the other. And another person sacrifices for your good. Unselfish love is what it is. Selfless love. Okay? Now, number 4, Christians understand that men and women, in a way different than any other creature, are made in the image and likeness of a Trinitarian God. Why are we made in the image and likeness of God? Because we have what? And we have what? How are we made in the image and likeness of God? We have an intellect to know truth and a free will to choose the good. Okay? God has an intellect, a divine intellect. He knows everything. He is supreme reason. Okay? God has a free will that is totally loving. We reflect the Trinitarian God in our makeup, our spiritual makeup, our intellect and will. So, we can reason, we can freely choose, and we can love. Just like the Trinity, in which we are made. We are made to be in relationships. The Trinity is a communion of love between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit from all eternity. We reflect God. We reflect this communal aspect, and especially it's reflected in marriage. Okay, Michael, I'm talking. Okay, I'm talking. Okay. So I'm going to end there for today. We'll pick up tomorrow more on this important document from the bishops of this state. Okay.
I think it's great.